Let that same fire fall on me today. Holy Spirit, ignite my spirit. Set my heart on fire for you. Remove every coldness. Remove every dryness. Let my passion for you come alive again.
Yo, what's good, family? Back with another video today. Fresh cut, feel me? I had to get right. It's been too long. But yo, we back with another video, family. Today, by the title, we're gonna be talking about an Egyptian god and Jesus Christ. There's a claim, a video that was sent to me that Jesus basically is a fraud, that Jesus stole the story of an Egyptian god named Horus, which Horus was here 3,000 years BC, so 3,000 years before Christ. That basically Horus had 12 disciples. Horus was born of a virgin. Horus was crucified, and basically the same story as Jesus. So we're gonna look into that, because if that is the case, then that, you know, if those things are true about this Egyptian god, then that kind of shows, you know, Jesus did steal, you know, this guy's story, or this God's story. But without further ado, we finna get into that. So there's basically claims, right, that Jesus stole the same exact story from Horus. So I'm not gonna get into every claim. Basically every biblical claim about Jesus being born of a virgin, Jesus being baptized, Jesus dying, Jesus doing miracles, Jesus not only dying but being buried and resurrected, and Jesus being crucified. All that stuff from the claim comes from supposedly this Horus, this Egyptian god. So I'm not going to get into every claim, but I'm going to get into 3 main claims that talk about, you know, Jesus and Horus. So without further ado, let's get into it. So on my list, right, so first we have the claim that Horus was born of a virgin. Before I get into this, I have sources. What I looked into, I read a book, I looked into multiple sources. Before I say anything, that there is no Egyptologist, there's no historian, there's no ancient Egypt text that says Horus was born of a virgin. So this is a claim. A claim is not evidence. So with this claim, I'm going to explain. So Horus was the Egyptian sky god. His father was named Osiris, and his mother was Isis. So Osiris, which is Horus's father, had beef going on with his brother Seth. So Seth is Horus's uncle. So his father Osiris and his uncle Seth, they're both brothers. They've been beefing, right? So basically Seth makes this chest. He makes this chest that fits Osiris's body. So he basically puts his brother in this chest and throws him down the Nile River, right? So Isis, his mother, is like, oh, like, where is he? She ends up finding his body. Then Seth cuts up Osiris's body, Horus's father's body, into 14 pieces and scatters it all across Egypt. So Isis basically she goes all around Egypt, finds his parts, and the only thing she could not find was his PG-13 genitals, his genitals, his private area. So only thing she could not find. So how the myth goes is that Isis finds all these little body parts, and the only one that she couldn't find was his genitals. And with the claim is that he was born of a virgin, but even in the story of how Horus is born, it does not show that he was born of a virgin, because Isis finds his body parts, right, and kind of pieces it together. The only thing she couldn't find was his genitals. So she basically uses some type of magic that she had, because she did have magical powers. So she uses this magic, and she basically turned herself into a bird and hovers over. She uses some type of magic. There's different myths, but she uses some type of magic. Some myths say that she made like a gold genital. She used some type of magic to make a fake or replica of his genitals. So the myth goes that she hovered over him as a bird, or as like some falcon bird. She hovered over him, resurrected Osiris, and grabbed his seed from him. So that's how the story of Horus was born. So Osiris, his father, is cut up. Isis, his mother, finds these pieces. She places all them together. She gets all his body. The only thing she doesn't have is his genitals. She goes and does some magic and makes a fake one, does some magic, hovers over him as a bird as he resurrects, and literally takes his seed through that period. And that's how Horus is born. That's how we get this Egyptian god. So even in the story of how Horus is born does not show that he was born of a virgin, because if he was born of a virgin, why did Isis have to find this dead guy's body parts all across Egypt? She would have just, didn't have sex with him, but she needed to resurrect him and do magic and get him there to do this magic and then to bear a son. So that claim that Horus was born of a virgin is out the window. You guys can look into this. I'm gonna list my sources as well in this video, but that's the first claim. So that breaks down Horus being born of a virgin. So the second claim I have on my list, right? And this one's not too long, but it's a good one. So it's Jesus was crucified, right? Jesus was crucified in the 3rd century. And basically they say that Horus was crucified. So like I said, before I say anything, there's no Egyptologist, there's no historian, there's no ancient Egypt text that says Horus was crucified. And it's crazy because Egyptian myths they were centuries before even crucifixions were a thing. Crucifixion does not even exist at the time because that is a Roman execution. So if you guys just piece this together, they say Jesus was crucified, or Horus was crucified. In the time of Horus, 3000 BC, if you look at the killing methods, crucifixion was not one of them. They had stuff like stoning and burning and all this other stuff, but crucifixion was not one because it did not exist at the time. So these myths were here. Centuries later is when crucifixion shows up and puts itself in the picture. And this video is not going to be long because it's pointless. So Horus being resurrected, right? So basically after Horus basically goes to do this birth, he basically goes on this mission to kill Seth, his uncle that killed his father and whatnot. So in Egyptian mythology, most of the gods that they believe that they technically don't die, but they go through this afterlife. A lot of gods merged in together, became one god. But there is no evidence, no Egyptologist, no one who claims that Horus died and he resurrected. There is no evidence along those lines at all. But we know from the scriptures that Jesus resurrected. He died on a cross. People saw that that's a Roman execution. I don't know how that would end up in Egypt 3,000 years before it even existed. But we know that from the story, Jesus was born of a virgin, and Jesus was crucified. Jesus did have 12 disciples. Also, there is no evidence. There's no Egyptologist, no historian, no ancient Egypt text that says even Horus had 12 disciples. Pharaohs did follow him and learn from him, yes, but there's no evidence, there's no text. You guys can't find me not one person, Egyptologist, that says Horus had 12 disciples. And I'm gonna post this book right here on the screen. I read this book. You guys can read this. This is a great book that talks about Horus, his story, how he was born, and basically the information that I got for this video for you guys. Also, these right here are my sources. So don't freak out. This is not just no random picture off of Google. Like, I didn't just find this on a website. Like, no, like, these are the sources I looked into. If you guys look at each individual source, you guys can look into these sources. These sources are authentic. Many Egyptologists, archaeologists, and people who study Egyptian mythology take these sources as valid. These sources I've read through them and looked through them. All I did was ask AI to put this in a format of sources. So don't think I, just found this random thing on Google. I actually looked into these sources. These are my sources. But before we get into the end of this video, the one thing I want to look at is that we have this story, right, of Egyptian mythology that was around Horus, around 3000 BC to 3200 BC. But this, when you guys look at the claim, the first ever claim about this, right? The first ever claim about this came in the 19th century by some guy who wrote a book, and the book is called The World's 16 Crucified Saviors. This book came out by Kersey Graves, and he made this claim in the 19th century that Jesus stole the story from this Egyptian god. So you're telling me 3000 BC in the 19th century, that's like almost 4,000 to 5,000 years a gap that no one ever noticed that they had the same story. Like, it took 5,000 years to, and that's even thousands of years after Christ. It took even thousands of years after Christ to see that these two had the same story. So it's very silly. And also a guy named Gerald Massey picks this up in the 20th century and writes a book. I think it's called like Ancient Egypt of Lights or something like that. But he writes a book, and then this documentary comes out about how Gerald Massey was like a self-taught, obviously he's self-taught because he didn't know what he was talking about. But Gerald Massey goes, after Gerald Massey writes this book, there's a film that comes out. I'm not sure the name, but it comes out and tries to tie and piece that Jesus stole the story from Horus. But the bottom line is that from the evidence I showed you, you guys have the sources. You guys, can't find me any Egyptologist, any historian, any ancient Egypt text that says that Horus had the same exact story of Jesus Christ. So anyone who brings this claim to you, I hope you guys can learn from this video. You guys can get something from this video. But yeah, that's it for this video. See you guys in the next one.